Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I was going to chat all about wedding budgets, and I wanted to share all the little ways that I saved in my wedding budget. Granted, you might be like, Amanda, you're not even a newlywed anymore. And yes, I'm not, but I actually wrote this blog post like in 2016, and I just was never happy with it. My talking skills have improved significantly on video since then. They're still not great by any means. But I tried filming this video multiple times back in the past and I always hated it. So I'm giving it another try today. I think it's super helpful as a bride to see all the different ways that you can save in your budget. Okay, so wedding budgets, you can't run from them, you can't hide from them, and they all suck. So no matter if you're spending $100 on your wedding or $100,000 on your wedding, every bride is going to stress about their budget. It's like the worst part of planning a wedding. And so for this video, I wanted to share little ways maybe that you haven't heard of yet that can maybe hopefully save you a couple of $100 from your wedding. So I thought this would be helpful for all the brides to be out there. And of course, some of the things I mentioned, you might be like, no way would I do that, because it's important to you. Everyone's going to have a different amount of money that they're willing to put towards things. So I'm sure there's one thing on this list that I'll chat with you that you'll be like, oh, light bulb. I don't need to spend the money towards that because it means absolutely nothing to me. If you want to see all the ways that I saved from my wedding budget, then keep watching. So definitely the biggest way that I probably saved in my wedding was having my aunt do all the flowers in our wedding. From there, I know I didn't have to pay for our florist. I had to just pay for the baseline things that everyone would have to pay for. There was no markup or anything like that. There was a lot more stress involved with that because I had to pick out every single stem that went into my wedding. No one was kind of there to guide me. It's just me and my mom. And we were like, okay, we need 100 of these roses, 100 of these roses. We had no idea how much we would need in the end. So that was definitely stressful. And we also had to pick all the vases and things like that. I'm not gonna lie, I ended up returning some of those after the wedding to save money. I'm just gonna say it. Definitely save significant amounts of money. It's real life, okay? Kind of look to your friends and family to see if there's anybody that has creativity that they can put towards your wedding. I also had my aunt and my cousin there the day of, and they were super helpful. She's an interior designer. My cousin's really creative. We're kind of all creative in my family. But they were there to help be extra hands and get my vision to life. So even if it's just a really small thing, it adds up. So I also had a cousin who had like a vinyl monogram cutout thing or access to it. I'm not quite sure. But she ended up cutting out all of my table number stickers, and then we ended up putting them on little acrylic because my mom has an art gallery, so we had access to different materials. So that's how we ended up putting our table numbers together. I'll actually show you guys what it looked like. So to give you guys an idea, this is what it looks like. This is our wedding hashtag. It says Journey to John. It's probably backwards and difficult to read because it's see-through. But I'm not sure what material this is. My mom just had them cut out. Someone at the gallery helped put her together. Super helpful. Erin, thank you. And then we just laid these against the middle of an arrangement on the table, and it was exactly what I wanted. I saw a picture on Pinterest. I'll show you guys, maybe if I can insert a photo. I'll show you guys my inspiration, or actually I'm going to do a different post on my Pinterest inspiration versus reality. Another thing that my family helped me out with was my dad, my brother, and my uncle came together and created the cross that was the backdrop to our ceremony. Ooh, this is going to be such a long video. I'm so passionate about it. So I really wanted a cross at the backdrop of our ceremony. I could have rented the one from our venue for, I believe, $150, but we knew we could make it ourselves, or they could. So we just bought materials for, I think, $40 worth of wood and stain, and they put it together, and now I have that cross forever. It's still at their house. I don't know what I'm going to do with that big thing, but it's a significant amount of savings. That's $110 that I saved right then and there, just a simple DIY. I'm sure you have a guy in your family that can help you with that type of project, So really just look at your friends and family, see what they offer, and see what they can help, because you will save significantly. So I just want to mention this because it's not something that everybody will be able to do, but if you have your own business or can offer something to somebody in the wedding industry, it never hurts to ask if they would be open to bartering with you. So my mom actually knows a video production company, and they had already traded artwork, so she technically had a credit with them. Well, in the end, I got my videographer completely free from my budget, which is awesome. It's, it's still trading goods. You're still paying, in a way, but that chunk of change, like $2,000 or whatever it was, didn't have to come out of my budget. Another example of this wasn't a planned thing. The table numbers that I mentioned, these things, we actually gave them to my wedding coordinator. She would have a lot more use for them, to offer them to future brides that she has. In exchange, we actually didn't have to pay her for a thank you card that she threw together super last minute. Thank you so much, Shelly. I threw that at her like 3 days before. I was like, do you think it's possible to do a thank you at each person's table? And she was like, yes, and she did it. So we were able to trade the table numbers that we'll never use again in exchange for that, and I think that was like $200 worth of savings there. That was like a day of trade, but it still saved money in the end. If you own your own business or have that type of leverage, it never hurts to ask if you can barter. So another way that I saved from my budget was I decided to do a Friday evening wedding versus the typical Saturday wedding, and that saved not as much as other venues at my specific venue location. It saved $500, but that's still a big chunk of change, and I happily accepted it just for doing a different day. That's not going to be for everybody, but I personally loved it just because we had an extra day into our honeymoon and non-working business day type of thing that we got to enjoy together. Don't feel like you're being a burden just for picking a Friday or a Sunday or even a Wednesday. Wednesday probably will save you significantly more money. Guests are already taking off and they're already traveling and making those arrangements. It's just another day that they're gonna do that for you. So in the end, do what you need to do. Some vendors also add on a little discount when it comes to a non-Saturday wedding, just because they can still book up Saturday and make money. So it never hurts to ask if they'll give you an additional 5 or 10% off for it being a non-Saturday day. Something that my parents did when booking vendors, I always asked if they offered a cash discount. So most of the vendors that I asked gave us an extra 10% off just for paying them in cash. Because we all know the value of cash in a business. So most of them offered 10 or 15% off. My wedding coordinator did, my photographer did. I don't think the DJ did. He was kind of weird. That's 10% off of savings, and it never hurts to ask. So if that's an option to you, you definitely want to keep a paper trail, all the emails and all that, just to be safe. So a lot of my friends actually could not believe that I didn't save out a save the date, but for me, that wasn't something that I wanted to spend money on in my wedding budget. So I just told all the people that I was worried about, like all my friends knew the date. I just, text them, hey, this is the wedding day. Save the date via text, and that saved $150 to $200. Don't feel like you have to send out a save the date just because that's what everyone's doing. Just send your people a text or write it on Facebook or whatever. Be like, hey, this is the date, save the date. There you go, $200 saved. You're welcome. We also saved in paper goods and that type of thing because we didn't print off like a wedding program. I found this, some people very traditional are gonna look for that. I never was asked, hey, where's your wedding program? But for me, every time I go to a wedding, I kind of look at it, but it's something that's gonna be thrown away. It doesn't really matter to that many people, I don't think, personally. So I just had a calligrapher write down, like, the wedding party. I wanted them to be acknowledged and their names so people knew who they were. But I didn't have to worry about printing off tons of things and putting them together. It was just one poster as everyone saw as they went into the ceremony, and that was that. So I'm just gonna also throw this in here since we're talking about all the ways that I saved with the paper goods, the save the dates, the programs. Another thing I didn't do in my invitation suit thing, I don't know if it's suit, that's a weird word to me. but I didn't order an accommodations or directions card to put in there because everything that guests needed was on my wedding website. Everyone has technology these days, so I just bought a little business card off of Zazzle. This was a last minute thing. I was like, I need to find out how to direct people to my wedding website. So I just bought a little business card and I put that in there, and I just had all that information is available on our wedding website where you can make your hotel arrangements, and that was that. So that saved on the weight that was needed for postage, and then I also didn't have to buy the expensive matching accommodations cards to go inside my invitations. Just keep that in mind. The more you add into your invitation, the more expensive postage will be. So if you want a big old bow for them to open, you're going to be paying for it in postage. It's pretty, yes, but it's not needed in my opinion. So I'm actually starting to see this more and more at weddings that I'm personally going to, but I'm seeing less and less of wedding favors. I personally did not do wedding favors. I just thought that was an extra expense that wasn't necessary to have a great wedding day. If you are super big into gifts, I understand you want to give your guests something, but I was going to be stressed out putting them together before the wedding, so I just was like, nope, no favors. So your venue will most likely offer you different upgrades that you can incorporate into your wedding day. Mine, for instance, had valet. You were under a certain amount of guests, you didn't have to pay for the valet. We didn't realize kind of how far that was a walk for our guests, so my dad wishes we did not skip on that in the end. But if the parking is good and you don't need the valet, then don't add the valet. They also offer different decor items that you can go through. Don't just get all wrapped up in everything that you could have on your wedding day, because most likely those decor items that you're renting from them are already significantly overpriced, and they're just making bank off of you for renting them because they can just rent them to the next bride the next day or the next weekend. So bring in your own things, then you have things that you can keep and use in your house. Buy decor that you actually would want to keep. That's another thing. Don't just buy decor that you can only use at your wedding. Try to incorporate little trinkets here and there, and they'll mean so much more to you when you put them in your own home. Because our venue was in the same place as the reception, we didn't have to worry about transportation. So that was a significant amount of savings, because we didn't have to get a bridal party bus or that type of thing. And also, Tim and I did not rent a car to leave in 5 seconds that people are gonna be like, oh, that's a cute car that you're leaving in. We just left in his new car, and because that was going to be a lot of money, I was shocked when I was looking at having a cute little old car to drive off in, because you're paying for mileage, and it was stressing me out trying to figure out how much it's going to cost, how many miles it's here to there, plus the driver, plus the tip, and all that. So I was just like, in the end, it doesn't matter what car we leave in, no one's going to care. It's a nice touch if you have the extra money in your budget, but I just skipped out on that. We also did not do a groom's cake at my wedding. Don't feel like you have to have 2 cakes or a groom's cake and the wedding cake. Yes, that's traditional, but Tim's not really that big into sweets, and we already had like a warm, hot cookie station. So I didn't do a groom's cake just because I felt like that's what you have at weddings. We just had our really nice, really tasty wedding cake, and no one was like, where's the groom's cake? So I'm not sure how much money that saved out of my budget, because we didn't even inquire about it, but I'm sure it saved like $100. For the food, there are so many things that can factor and change and make small adjustments to your menu and food options that will add up really quickly. We did a buffet style dinner instead of paying for a sit down dinner, just because you eat the same food, it's just a matter of how it's presented. So we would have had to pay for extra servers and more tip just for the seated dinner, and it also was going to take up a lot more time in our wedding timeline. Of course, it's dependent on what kind of vibe you're going with, but we just did a buffet to keep it a little more budget friendly and to take up less time. You can also opt out of serving coffee. You can opt out of 3 appetizers, just do 2, and that's going to save you hundreds of dollars. So don't be worried about asking for different quotes based on picking different things, because that's a huge way that you can manipulate and adjust your budget to fit what you need it to. This is something that I didn't really consider as savings in my budget, but after my wedding and now even as a bridesmaid, I have seen how this number can affect your budget significantly. So consider the amount of girls and boys that you're going to have in your bridal party. For each extra person, you're adding on another floral arrangement, you're adding on another hair and makeup, you're adding on another gift. Granted, if you have a close group of friends and you have to have them all, yes, it's more important to pay the money and have all your close friends in it, but don't be like, I want a huge bridal party and just invite anybody and everybody, because you are going to be paying for each person in your wedding. This was something that I didn't even consider. I'm a bridesmaid next month, and the bride has 9 in her bridal party, and in order for the hair and makeup to be done in time, we needed to start an hour before she's allowed to use the venue. So now she's going to have to pay probably for an extra hour in the cottage. I don't know how much that's going to be, but just for having 9 people, she's having to pay extra for the time that's required to have hair and makeup done, because there's going to be 20 services done that day. Also, she's having to pay for an extra makeup artist to be there just because of the amount of girls. So it's a trickle effect in the amount of people you have in your bridal party. Something that wasn't like a big deal to Tim and I was getting a hotel for the night. We opted to just stay at home. It was his first time staying at our place that we were living, so we didn't feel like we needed to have a hotel just because it's our wedding night. Instead of packing up there, we got to wake up at our home together. So that probably saved $150 in Atlanta on a hotel night. And of course you're like, well, it's $150, I'd rather have a hotel. But the $150 adds up with all these things that I'm sharing with you guys. So just consider it. You don't have to get a hotel just because it's your wedding night. If it's your first night together, it's going to be important and special no matter where you're staying. Granted, probably don't stay at your parents' house. I don't know. I probably wouldn't be comfortable with that. But it's in my bridal accessories video, but I just want to quickly mention it again. Don't feel like you have to get all the accessories that your bridal boutique offers, because you can probably save a good chunk of change by ordering it online at Etsy or outside of the bridal world. So my wedding veil that my bridal boutique was trying to sell me to match my wedding dress was $1,000, and I was like, there's no way I'm paying $1,000 for a wedding veil that's just gonna drag on the ground and be worn for 30 minutes. So I went to Etsy, ordered one for $100. She gave it to me for free for being a blogger. We kind of bartered in that sense. But if you are a bride to be, you can save yourself $900 by ordering that veil instead of the one at the boutique. Now I'm just going to mention all the things that you probably have heard in every single video or post that you've seen on wedding budgets, but they obviously have a big impact and are in all those videos for a reason. Of course, the guest list is one of the biggest ways that you can save in your budget, because every single guest is going to require food, alcohol, drinks, another booty to sit, so you're paying for that chair. If it kind of runs in, you need an extra table. That's a whole nother flower arrangement, tablecloth, table, all that stuff. What Tim and I did was we went through all of the must-haves, all of our really close friends and all of our family that was like, these people have to be here, and then we went through acquaintances and distant family, that type of thing, and we looked at kind of trying to find a good number for how many tables that we already kind of had set aside for our budget, because the venue offered like 10 tables, let's just say that. So how many people are we gonna have to pay extra for these tables? And there's a lot of ways to do that, but just consider your wedding budget and wedding guests number one thing. Same with plus ones. My rule was if they haven't been together for a year, if they're not an established couple, and they were going to have friends there that they weren't going to be alone, then they didn't need a plus one. That's going to be different for everybody. Hate to be harsh like that, but it is what it is. You don't want to be spending like $150 per person for people that you don't even know. Part of it is a wedding. Yes, there's going to be people you don't know. Families are merging, all that good stuff. But just be thoughtful in picking every single person that comes to your wedding. This kind of is like an all-inclusive thing. I've mentioned it a couple times in the video already, but Don't feel like you need to spend money from your budget on something that is traditional, or if it doesn't mean anything to you. An example I've already talked about, like favors, the groom's cake, or if you hate cake, don't feel like you have to have a cake. It's your wedding. Make it unique. Same with the save the dates. Everyone, all your friends are getting save the dates, but don't feel like you have to do it and if it doesn't mean anything to you. Alright guys, so that is all the ways that I found helpful with saving from my wedding budget. I hope if you're a bride-to-be, at least one thing from this video was helpful for you and can save you some money from your budget. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.